One-off video games come and go. Some become cult classics, and some fade into obscurity. However, the life of a franchise often prolongs this effect. Sometimes a series lives strong, but dies due to bad management. Some simply lose relevance. But here are the titans. The top 10 best-selling video game franchises ever. And if you want a fun reference for this list, the Elder Scrolls series has sold 17 million units. Final Fantasy is a JRPG juggernaut. Not only is it one of the best-selling RPG franchises, but it's also the franchise that brought JRPGs to the mainstream market outside of Japan. It's no surprise to see it here, although it is surprising to see it only number 10 on the list. With over 130 million sales, Final Fantasy is doing pretty well as it heads into its 30th anniversary this year. But in the grand scheme of things, I honestly thought it beat out some of the franchises further down this list. Then again, as an RPG fan, maybe I was just expecting to see RPGs ahead of everything. Of all the games released in the Final Fantasy series, what is the best-selling one to date? Together, Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X-2 have sold almost 15 million copies. Of course, since sales for the two have been reported together, and Final Fantasy X-2 accounted for a good chunk of those sales even before they were bundled for the remasters, it's hard to say how many Final Fantasy X sales stand on their own. The oft-praised Final Fantasy VII, however, has pulled in almost 12 million sales all by itself. Just imagine what the remake might do. With over 150 million sales, a new game planned for 2017, and more sales than Final Fantasy, Need for Speed is the most successful racing game series, period. Some of the more recent Need for Speed games received mixed reviews, but the series is still well loved among fans. I've personally never been a fan of most racing games, but clearly I'm in the minority. Despite its general simplicity, the tile-based puzzle game Tetris has seen 170 million total sales. To be fair, it's been around since 1984, and it's a mastery of game design. Its simple style of gameplay is easy to learn, and there's something addictive about it. Tetris also won the Guinness World Record for being the most ported video game, as it is available on 65 different platforms by 2011. And 35 million of its sales came in 1989, when Nintendo bundled Tetris with a Game Boy. Tetris may be simple, but it's left a definite mark on gaming history. Between its main games, expansions and spin-offs, the Sims franchise has managed to pull in even better sales than Tetris, netting over 200 million of them. What is the appeal of this life simulation series? Is it the relaxed, accessible gameplay that helps new gamers become invested in it? Is it the sadistic ability to let terrible things happen to your Sims? Is it because of the odd balance The Sims has found between a casual game and a core game? Whatever the reason, there's something about The Sims that appeals to a lot of us. But maybe you feel the casual market is what netted its place. Well, The Sims has been outsold by a series that can definitely make that claim. When people talk about the popularity of the Wii, they usually bring up how Nintendo released a lot of games meant to appeal to a more casual audience. Everybody. It worked. The Wii series, which includes Wii Sports, Wii Play, Wii Fit, Wii Music and Wii Party, has crossed the 201 million mark for total sales. Why? Casual gamers, of course. Even their names point toward their marketing. Wii Sports, Wii Fit. These were games being marketed toward people who wouldn't consider themselves traditional gamers. Your cousin, your grandma, your accountant. You're not saving the world or fighting bad guys. You're just bowling or doing yoga. And the Wii's motion controls made that easy for people who aren't familiar with the typical game logic. In short, don't underestimate the casual market. They can have a huge impact on sales. But then again, there's the other side of the spectrum. Casual gaming isn't everything, and Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto series remains one of the most popular video game franchises of all. Unlike what some paranoid people would have you think, the continuing success of Grand Theft Auto isn't because gamers are all murderous maniacs who can't wait to play as a criminal, and besides, there are plenty of crime-focused games that aren't anywhere near the sales numbers. Instead, the lasting appeal is probably because Grand Theft Auto offers many different types of play, all of which are executed fairly well. These games have shooting, racing, flying, exploration, and even some RPG and life sim elements. They handle these genres well, provide deep, open worlds, and generally have stories players find engaging. Knowing that, it is no surprise the franchise has sold over 235 million copies. Of course, escapism likely contributes to it, but the key thing Grand Theft Auto has is a style that appeals to a wide range of players. It has to be here, right? Call of Duty is practically the poster child of mainstream gaming and hardcore games. Sometimes this is meant positively, like when companies hope to bring in Call of Duty sales numbers, but other times it's meant negatively. Fans of more niche genres often use Call of Duty as the default example of what someone must like if they dislike the game in question. You don't like Stardew Valley? Oh, you must love Call of Duty then. On the other hand, if Call of Duty players are the majority of mainstream gamers the way people suggest, you'd expect to see a lot more first-person shooters on this list. Halo, Battlefield, they barely have a fraction of Call of Duty's 250 million sales. Call of Duty is definitely popular, regardless of how many people think its entry is too similar to the last. It consistently pulls in high sales numbers and strong reviews, but it doesn't hold as much dominance over mainstream gaming as people suggest, and you might be surprised at the franchises it's still trailing. In discussions about video games, especially when it comes to what's popular, you're likely to encounter a few claims. Many insist kid-friendly games don't sell, and developers need to make more mature games if they hope to succeed. And if you're a fan of role-playing games, you'll probably come across an increasingly fervent opinion that turn-based RPGs are outdated and unpopular. Why are series like Final Fantasy trying out action combat? According to popular opinion, because if they made a turn-based RPG today, surely it would sell terribly. Only a handful of old-school diehards still buy turn-based RPGs, right? Pokemon, the most kid-friendly turn-based RPG series you can find, sells more than Call of Duty. At least it's kid-friendly on the surface. You can check out my top 5 Pokemon to keep away from your kids video if you want to find out about that. To date, Pokemon has seen almost 300 million sales, over double the sales of Final Fantasy. Sure, it has a few spin-off series with different gameplay styles, but they make up only a fraction of its total sales. While Pokemon definitely appeals to kids, this is one kiddie franchise whose fans don't stop playing. Teenagers and young adults who got into the series as kids are still buying Pokemon games today. And instead of slowing down, Pokemon sales might be picking up. Pokemon Sun and Moon sold 14.69 million sales in their first 44 days alone. Suffice to say, Pokemon might be a kid-friendly, turn-based RPG, but it's not going anywhere. At first glance, this is baffling. How in the world did the Sonic series outsell Pokemon? Sure, it's a classic series. Yes, it has some entries players consider fantastic. And yes, these sales figures are counting the Mario and Sonic games, which gives the total a nice boost. But its recent entries have been slammed, and most people consider Sonic a shadow of what it once was. So where did all these sales come from? Casual gamers are a force to be reckoned with, but there's an even more powerful force out there: mobile gamers. Sonic Dash is a mobile Sonic game for iOS and Android devices. It accounts for 200 million of Sonic's total 350 million sales. Now, since it's a free download, you can argue over whether those 200 million downloads should really count as sales. But as anyone familiar with mobile gaming knows, a free-to-play game with in-app purchases is anything but free. And yes, if we counted Pokemon Go downloads for the Pokemon franchise, Pokemon would definitely be in the lead. The king of video game sales is a face familiar to gamers and non-gamers alike. One of the most iconic video game characters of all time, Mario. Mario is the best-selling video game franchise of all time, and it's nowhere near in danger of being caught. Pokemon and Sonic have sales in the 300 millions, but Mario's has crossed 570 million, more than Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto combined. And no, the new mobile game Super Mario Run is not inflating that number like Sonic Dash is. Mario and Mario Kart each contribute a massive portion of the series' sales, and the remaining spin-offs pull in the rest. So what puts Mario so far ahead of everyone else? I'd say there are a few causes. Mario is a series that appeals to both kids and adults, just like Pokemon. Like The Sims, it's simple enough to attract casual fans, but it's complex enough for hardcore fans. Its various spin-offs let it cover a variety of genres similar to Grand Theft Auto, and it's one of the oldest video game franchises ever, whose early entries still hold up well today, like Tetris. Will Mario ever be dethroned? It's possible, but it looks like Mario will be the #1 best-selling video game franchise for many years to come. And if what we've seen so far of Super Mario Odyssey is any indication, its sales will continue to surge. I hope you enjoyed this week's list, and if you did, leave a like. And if you want to see more lists now, click here for the top 10 most valuable Magic the Gathering cards, which was a really fun list, or here for 10 games that started as other projects. And if you want to see more lists in the future, subscribe.